Good morning, 13th jurors. Hello, hello. Come in and take your seats. Hello, hello. Good morning. I feel like we just left here. Doesn't it feel like we just left here? I think it does. Hello, hello. Everybody's filing in one by one. Hello, hello. Good morning. So I have first of all, before I forget, because y'all know I'm a forgetter, I did this all by myself today, and I would just like a round of applause for that, because we all know that there are many things I'm good at. Tech is not one of them. However, I did the video for today. So welcome to our first tailgaters. Of course I do it and it's messing up. Hold on, wait, I got it. Give me one thing to do. What is happening? Okay, this is why I don't do things on my own. Portland Trailblazers TV was first. I don't know what's happening to the video, so we're just going to skip through it. Queen Swope came in second. You get to take your rocking chair. And, oops, we skipped it. I skipped it. And Candace Hoff, you get to come in and take. We clapped too early. Whatever. You know what? We tried. I have a few things today. I don't know what's going on with it actually, because I have my fiber internet and my internet is like incredibly fast, but for whatever reason, I guess I got to figure it out. I've had a couple things that are showing their buffering that I've looked at. My YouTube did it last night when I was looking at stuff. So my computer needs coffee. It has not caught up to the rest of us who have been up for 2 hours. So we have a couple things before court gets started in a few minutes. I promised y'all that I would do the cell phone data. So I did. Also, actually, before we even get started on that, if you missed last night when we finished, we had Bryson Boom Paul, who we've been reading all of his tweets and stuff online. He's our intel into the courtroom. We did an awesome Q&A with him last night. Actually, funny you should ask how I found the pic of him on the beach. I went into crazy lady stalker mode to get this done, and I went back on his Instagram. I don't even know how long. There's no telling when this picture was from. So I totally look like a creep, but I do this for y'all. Is it the graphics card? I have no idea. I don't even know what a graphics card is. It could possibly be. The tech isn't my thing. I just bought a really fancy computer so that it could do everything for me, and I don't know how to do any of it. So Bryson was awesome yesterday. He answered all of our questions. He was such a good sport about everything, and he was so much fun and gave us some of the dirt, some of the inside stuff. It was a lot of fun. So if you missed the interview, the Q&A with him yesterday, make sure you check that out. So that's our first order of business. Our second order of business, I promised y'all that I would have the cell phone data mapped out, and I did. I have to find where I saved it. I I stayed up really late doing this, but it was worth it because I found some really interesting things. All right, let's see. This one, no, it's not it. That's the other presentation. Oh, here it is. I'm going on like 3 hours of sleep because I stayed up doing this and then had to wake up early to finish some stuff. So I'm going on 2 cups of coffee and 3 hours of sleep. So we're going to see how this goes. We're going to work with it. All right. Let's take a look at this. Let me move myself over here while we're doing this. All right. So I'll post these on well, I already did post them on Twitter, but we'll see if we can get them on Discord and everything too. But okay, so here's the cell phone stuff, and I spent a lot of time trying to do this so that we could make sure that we got it as accurate as possible. But the green is Juvie, the red is Melly, the blue is Sack, and the purple is Withers, Dontavius Withers, who was in the red SUV, if you'll remember. So the cell phone data does show that the purple phone, which was in the red SUV, did go home. You can see down here. Every time I do that, that pops up. You can see down here the purple phone did go home. However, after the purple phone went home, okay, so they all traveled along the same route. And these are the data points. These are not the towers. These are the data points. So they traveled along the same, well, let me rephrase. Not the data points as opposed to towers. Let me rephrase because I want to make sure I'm very accurate about this. There were the 2 reports. There was the one that was the towers that had like it was, somewhere within this range type stuff. And then there was the one where it was like the engineering report where everything showed much more accurate location. So I want to be clear about that. This is the one with the most accurate location. So they all travel along the same route when they leave the studio. We knew that. When they get down here, the Jeep is seen on security camera footage right here. And also the Melly's phone, however they want to call it, if they want to call it somebody else's phone, they can. However, hey, JT. Thank you, JT. JT, I was up so late last night working on this and figuring out what it all meant. Yeah, thank you, JT. I appreciate that. Yeah, when I started finding some patterns, I sent a text to the group text. I was like, oh my gosh, you're not gonna believe what I found. And then I was like, sorry, y'all, it's like 2 a.m. or something. But that's okay. That's why anytime you're friends with me, you have to put your phone on silent because there's no time what time in the middle of the night I'm going to be up messaging people. Okay, so security camera caught the Jeep going right here, right? And also Melly's phone, however you want to call it, Melly's phone that has all the selfies and that he gives out his phone number for that one and that he uses and that he says is his. He says it's his until he gets to trial. It's his phone. It shows the location there too. So it shows that he was still in the Jeep when the Jeep passed by that security point. So that's issue number 1. Let me not say him. His phone was in there. The prosecutors were saying all of these are consistent with staying in motion, that there was no time that any of them stopped. We'll see more about that later, see what comes out about that. But this is the actual data. Melly's phone makes pings right here as well. And then up here at 3:52. Now this is 3:47 when it does it down here. Up here, 352. At 353, the Jeep is seen on the security camera right here at the school. And then at 353, there's also the data point where Melly's phone is right here. At 357, Sack and Melly's phones show that they're right at that point where they're where you get to US 27. And then from 4 a.m. to 4:03 a.m., Sack and Sack and Melly's phones are showing that they are where the crime scene was. Now, if you'll remember, this is also the time when there were 70 steps while they were stopped here. This is also the time that there were 70 steps that were recorded on Melly's phone, which would show that the prosecutor's theory is that this is where he got out, staged the scene, etc., possibly stashed the gun, and we'll get to that in a second. And then the Jeep is seen again at 4:06, according to the PCA, on the camera at that school. And I did not put the report that has the towers where everything is like this. Like it could have been here, could have been here. I didn't put it on this one because I wanted this one to be our very accurate one to see them all together. The other one is, I'll talk about the other one in a second, but the other one shows, different things, but this is the one with all of the most accurate data points. The other one is mostly stuff that happened after this time. Let me show you this. Oh, also, Withers had no more cell phone activity the rest of this evening. And also, there was no, after about this point, there were no more calls or anything on juvies. So, okay, I'll explain to you why. Hold that thought because there's a slide coming that explains how I know it's his phone. The cell phone points, or the cell phone data points here, are all when stuff is happening on the phone. So it pings to the tower, or it pings the locations, and that's how you know where it's at. So after that point, there was no more activity on Juvie's phone. So that's why there are no marks here for that. Okay, so this is the one with the, like I tried to do as close as I could to theirs. Let me move myself again so you can see. I have to move for different maps. All right, so remember the camera sees at 346, et cetera, and then 353. We see it going down here. There is a spot down here for Juvie's phone where it hits on the tower, showing that it's in this area somewhere. That one is not one of the ones that was the very specific time or specific data point, but it shows that the tower shows that it's down in this area somewhere. So I put it with them because it would make sense for them to be with there, but I want to make clear that that's what that is. Now, this anywhere from here and anywhere in this area, so it could have been on either one of these roads. 417 and 418, there are data points. At 420, there's data points. So it looks like there's some driving back and forth and stuff here. Melly calls Track's phone at 4:40 a.m. and it shows that he's somewhere in this area. At 4:23, somewhere in this area. So that gives a lot of leeway right there for where he could be. So I didn't go into too much detail on that because I want to hear more about more data before I can give any specifics on that. I can only give you what they give. Now, here's something else. The next day, around lunchtime, I don't know if we caught this yesterday, but the next day around lunchtime, let me move myself again. I'm just taking a field trip all over the place. All right, Melly's phone and Track's phone. First of all, Track's phone was in the same place from like 1 a.m. until the next morning. Didn't move, didn't go anywhere. At noon the next day, so not like hours after the murders, Melly calls Track at 12:01. And then and they didn't put this together yesterday, but if you follow, and I got all this together last night and layered it together so you could see it, but he calls Track's phone at 12:01. And then and Track is the manager, if you'll remember. At 12:01, their phones are showing consistent with right here, moving along together. There's 12:03 down here, 12:05, they ping again. From 12:06 to 12:12, they are in the vicinity of the crime scene. And then both of their phones are showing that they're going back up north and away from the crime scene at 12:14. So, and then away from the crime scene at 12:14, and then 12:18 here, 12:21 back down here. So this shows that that Melly's phone and Track's phone, it looks like possibly met up the next day at 12, went to the crime scene, spent a few minutes there, and then left. So I'm sure that they didn't make a big deal about that yesterday, but when I plotted everything out, that was the first time that I noticed the patterns on it. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that. This is another thing of when I said the 417, 418, how it was a little bit like the one that wasn't exactly accurate. I put it on here just so we could see it. And where I think I saved it. I may not have. If I didn't, let's see. Oh, I didn't. I thought I put it on here, but that's okay. I will tell you. Okay, the whole thing about is this his phone or not? I don't know if y'all noticed yesterday, but the paper that she kept putting up was a pawn slip that Melly had filled out, and he gave his phone number on the pawn slip as that phone. Now, this is one of the many times that he gave out that specific phone number as his phone number. Look, I have said all along I will have an open mind, but there are some things that are just common sense. He gives out that number as his phone number. It has all of his selfies. It is logged into all of his social media. It is the one where he, gives it out to people on, like they have stuff where he gave it out to people on Instagram, telling them, hey, call me, and gave out that number. And he's even listing it on his pawn slip and on his, all of his other information. You can nitpick all you want to that it was in, his mom's name, or he was on a plan with SAC. That's fine. You can think whatever you want. I have made up my mind it's his phone because that's just common sense based on evidence. That's just evidence. Now, am I saying that we know for a fact that he had the phone on him? No, they haven't proven that yet, but it's his phone. I mean, let's be real. It's his phone. I had let me see. I believe I took a screenshot. Let me double check.
A piece of evidence.
Pretty sure I took a screenshot of the pawn slip. Yep, I did. This is when you zoom in. Let's see if I can get it clearer. Let me see if I can pull it up. Well, I took this at like 3 a.m. and it looked clear to me at 3 a.m., but might have to go back and pull it from the actual footage because you can see the phone number that he listed was his, but I guess when I screenshotted it, I didn't get a clear shot, but we'll pull it up. So like I said, everybody's entitled to whatever opinion you have about the phone, but it's his phone. It's his phone. All right. So also, we are going to do something a little bit different today because we get the luxury of she got bedhead. Because we get the luxury of a long lunch break with court, we are going to split the stream into two so that our mods can have a break. And after yesterday, literally 17 hours with no break, I'm going to need a lunch break today. So we are going to split the stream into two today, just so y'all know. I've got the other one ready. We'll get it published and all that during lunch, so that I'll do it about 15 minutes before we're set to come back. So that way we can all have a little bit of a break. Alrighty. Let's see. Did Chavez's get moved? I just saw that. Nursey Dog Mom, did that one get moved? I hadn't seen that yet, but I hadn't had a chance to look either. Let's see. We have, court hasn't started yet. They're there, but let's see. Okay. Got it. Making sure I had it all set up and ready for us to jump over there as soon as they come in. Yeah, I'll have to pull it.
Things to conceal his identity would allow his eyes to be seen. So the state is requesting for him to be able to wear that, to be able to hide things of his identity that aren't easily changeable, so as to protect his safety.
We have a secret witness.
And that's the purpose that you gave me this case. It says something that I didn't hear. I haven't read it.
No, that is on a different issue. That was provided to defense counsel as well yesterday. There's been a discussion as to if they were going to stipulate to a portion of what the state would have to prove, or if the state was going to have to be able to get into all of the other areas regarding the gang affiliations and the other crimes committed by other gang members, which is what the case I provided to Your Honor states. That the state does have to prove multiple members and that they are also committed and engaging in criminal acts.
And what authority would I have? Is there some case law that was happened before?
For Detective Polo to testify as such?
Yes.
He has testified twice in Judge Refuting's courtroom wearing this same headgear in the case of the state of Florida versus
No, I was asking if there was any public cases.
I have not seen any, Your Honor, on this specific issue. He's testified before Judge Fine just last week wearing the same headgear in state of Florida versus Scott Peterson. The other one is state of Florida versus Trayvon Newsom. There's 3 other co-defendants as well on that case.
Well, Judge, first of all, regarding that, I would like to see the outfit that he is supposedly going to wear to disguise himself. It's a violation of the Confrontation Clause of the U.S. Constitution. And The state should have, with all due respect, filed a motion giving us notice of that prior to bringing it up. Concerning that, there are several issues concerning that. And the confrontation clause deals with the demeanor of the witness.
Can I stop you for a second?
Huh?
Can I stop you for a second?
Yes,
Regarding this particular witness, did you take his deposition?
we did take this step.
And was he wearing a mask then or not?
Yes, sir.
He was, but
So let me stop. I'm just trying to figure out, is this the same type of mask that he's wore then he's going to wear now?
Yes, sir.
I think the court needs to see it because it covers his entire face other than his eyes. So the jury cannot see and observe his demeanor at all. At all.
I understand the court only wants to hear argument.
No, I was trying to figure, counsel said he wanted to see what it was.
I really want the court to see it.
That's why I want to know if he took his deposition, if he's wearing a mask during the deposition.
I just wanted to clarify two things. Mr. Elstein is making the argument. One is that the record is clear that none of the threats that this witness, that were referred to by the state concerning this witness, have anything to do with this defendant or this case. The other is to clarify that the state did not file a motion, but the state did give me notice yesterday evening. They raised the fact that this issue would be raised.
Okay, this is a photograph from.
I'd ask that you print that out and mark it as an exhibit.
I can't print it in color in the courtroom, but I'm happy that's a June 12th photo from the Broward County Courthouse where Detective Polo was testifying in a different case.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, can we approach the bench for a moment?
Already. Already. Sidebar. Oh, that sound. Take a shot, do a squat. We're already at a sidebar. Already. Didn't take long. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I think they said that he's the undercover, or the one who works with the gangs. And so, of course, he wants to wear a disguise. That's not uncommon. I mean, it happened in the Travis Rudolph trial, too. If you'll remember, they cut they wouldn't do audio or video. And he came in, they had, when we did our interview with Mark Shiner, they told us they had screens in front of the witness stand so that nobody could see him. And he had on like a ski mask and all kinds of completely covered. So this is not like it's not a big deal, but they probably don't want his testimony to come in. Let the man wear his mask. Let him wear his mask. Yeah, there's always issues with everything the state wants to present. But I'll say this, I mean, that's their job. They're doing their job. I would be a little bit more annoyed if this wasn't a death penalty case. His life is on the line. So I don't blame them. They're doing their job. Yes. If y'all missed last night, you missed JT and one of his dramatic readings while he wore a wig. And it was fantastic. And I was sitting here at my computer trying to lurk. So I had that on one screen, on one monitor over here, and then I had on all of this, I was doing all the mapping and everything, doing all the cell phone stuff. And he distracted me because I look over and there's JT in a wig doing a dramatic reading. It was hilarious. Let's see. Yeah, they let the undercover officer in the Rudolph trial go full off camera behind a partition that only the jury could see around and with a mask on. Yes. Let's see. Oh, I put those on Twitter. The charts. I put them on there last night when, I guess technically it was this morning. JT says, I might have a few new hairs up my sleeve on Friday, and that's as far as I'll derail the chat. Y'all keep being amazing as a community. If y'all haven't checked out Night Court, it's a lot of fun. We do the throwback trials, and right now we're doing Jodi Arias. And there's wigs involved sometimes. It's kind of cool with the throwback trials. You get to have a little bit more leeway on the silliness because it's, obviously all the trials that we go through are going to have emotional parts, but it's fun to be able to laugh at the ridiculous and make some parts of it, make fun of the ridiculous parts, really. Let's see. You have not missed anything yet. You have missed the first sidebar, and you missed the data charts, where I put everything together, and you can see that Melly's phone was in the Jeep with the victims' phones as well during the time the crime was committed, and that Melly's, let me rephrase, Melly's phone and Track, his manager, both of their phones show that looks like they met up about noon the next day and went back to the crime scene, spent a few minutes there, and then left. Let's see. Yeah, it's different than day court. It's we have fun here too, but this has to be, we're in real time on this, and it has to be a little bit more not as we can't just stop for a dramatic reading and stuff on here. So, oh yes, sorry, I will post it on the Facebook page. I forget about the Facebook. I will do that. Let's see. I can do that now real quick before I forget, because y'all know how my medicine is. Good morning. Welcome. Get caught up. We're on a sidebar, so it's perfect time to get caught up. Yes, there, if you missed it when we went over it this morning, Facebook, the phone of Melly called the phone of Track, his manager, at noon the next day, and their phones moved together from right there before they get to US 27, down 27 to the crime scene, around in that area for a few minutes. I think it was like 7 to 12 minutes or something, if I can remember right. This was at 3 o'clock in the morning when I found this, 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock. I don't know what time it was. And then back up and out. So for that to be such a deserted area, or not deserted, desolate area, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to be there at 4 a.m. and then back again at noon the next day. So interesting stuff. So I guess we'll see what else they have. I mean, their biggest thing right now is that they're saying that the defense is saying that it can't prove that it's his phone or that he had the phone. I think it kind of insults our intelligence to say it's not his phone. It's just a little bit silly, but I have not seen them prove that he had his phone yet, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm adding these to Facebook now. All right, let's see. I got the one with them going back the next day, the bigger one and the smaller one. Okay. Cell tower data. And on Facebook, my page is Brandi Churchwell, 13th juror. The police did not know where the crime scene was the day after because all they had to go on was what was being told to them. So they did not know about the crime scene until a month later when the cell phone data came back. The only reason they were able to find it is because of the cell phone data showing that they went there and then came back. So they thought, well, since we couldn't find anything where they said it was, let's follow the data and see if there was anything there. So they took the tracker dog, and that's how they found the shell casings and the glass. He dropped the pin, and there's nothing that's shown on the data yet. So we haven't got to his actual data. This stuff that we got into was the cell tower and the engineering reports and stuff like that. But we haven't gotten to any of his data yet. So I'm assuming we will find out about that when they bring in that person. That'll be a different testimony. So, which is why I didn't spend a whole lot of time yet figuring out where I think he may have been after everything, because I know that more of that information is coming. So and it was late. I needed to go to bed. Let's see. Who do you think is guilty, or do you think it was indeed a drive-by shooting? I think that there's no chance in hell it was a drive-by shooting. Period. It wasn't. There's nothing that you could say to convince me it was a drive-by shooting. There is every single piece of evidence that we've had that shows it was not a drive-by shooting. So that's my answer on that. As far as who is guilty, I know that Bortland lied. I know that Melly lied. I'm following the data, y'all, and I'll be clear. Like, it's right now, it's not looking good. The state has not proven it. As far as my own personal opinions on whether or not he did it, it is not looking good so far. We'll see what defense says. My mind is always open, but my mind's not open about it being a drive-by anymore. It's not a drive-by. It's not a drive-by. But if, if the defense comes out and has a great explanation about, why Melly's phone was there the whole time and why he got out and why he called his girlfriend and said he was just in a drive-by, and why he put a documentary on his YouTube that says he was just in a drive-by, and why he went back to the crime scene the next day and spent a few minutes there with his manager and then left, and why he's lied about everything, then we'll see how it goes. But the state hasn't proven anything yet. So, I mean, that's kind of where you're at in these trials. You can see what evidence is given, see, kind of see where you're leaning, but you can't really, or I can't really make a full decision until I've seen enough to where I can make a full decision. So, there are two things that I am convinced on. It was his phone, and it was not a drive-by. So my mind's still open to everything else. We'll see what all they comes. This is only, what are we on, day 7, day 8? I can't, it's all running together. So we'll see what else is presented. We're still very early into this trial. So my mind could be swayed either way. It's Brandi Churchwell, the Facebook one, Brandi Churchwell, 13th juror, day 7. See, I lose track. Or 6.5, yeah. So, yeah, that's another thing too. We missed a whole day pretty much. I mean, Tuesday when we came back, there was nothing but just fussing all day, and sidebars. We've been let out early a few times. We didn't have court Monday. We don't have court on Fridays. So we're still so early into this. So, oh yeah, that is one thing. That's one thing that I believe too, as of now, based on everything from the evidence showing, the medical examiners can tell what shots were fired that killed them and what came after they were already dead. Based on, their stuff and the trajectory of the entry and exit wounds and stuff like that, I believe that the shots came from inside the car as well. That is one thing that I think, based on everything I've read, all the court papers and everything. Let's see. Megan Baldwin says, how can you prove a case without being allowed to enter critical evidence? That is one part of the judicial system that can be a little bit frustrating, but I also do understand it, because there are certain things like, okay, let's say Melly is completely innocent. Like, there's a logical explanation for all of this. He left his phone in the car, ended up getting it from Portland later, and Portland told him the drive-by story, and then he called his girlfriend and pretended like he was part of it to be dramatic or whatever. Like, let's say that, like, let's assume for a second that that's the truth, that he is 100% without a doubt innocent. If the jury sees the Snapchat stuff that has the stuff that they wouldn't let in, the stuff that has the guns and the money and the lyrics and stuff like that. Let's say they see that, and that's part of his persona, but he's 100% innocent. That could skew their vision of who he is and whether or not he's able to, commit this type of crime. So it could be more prejudicial than, probative. So
Right.
I do
and
understand.
This was on his direct examination.
Oh, goodness gracious. They just pop in, interrupting me. So they do,
jurors. How did you exclude the defendant in this case, Mr. Devins?
How did I exclude it?
Yes.
Oh, this is previous. I thought we were back all of a sudden. So they do have things that are, I think, important to make sure that they separate in order to give him a fair trial. And that's the thing is, if he's guilty, you want him to be convicted based on a fair trial and fair evidence. Not only because it's constitutional, but because, if, let's say he is 100% guilty and we know it for a fact, then you don't want there to be any issue with appeals, that could end up having to put the family through another trial or anything like that. So that's if he's 100% guilty. If he's 100% innocent, then you want everything to be a fair trial because, you don't want anything to prejudice the jury against him so that he has a fair shot. So it's one of those things that's really frustrating sometimes to watch with this whole process, but it's necessary. What if someone else entered the car, shot them, but merely won't say who it is because he's complicit or because he's in fear? Okay, let's talk about that. So if somebody else entered the car, the cell phone data shows that they did not. It was consistent with movement on the cell phone data and on the security camera, like in the traffic cameras and stuff, catching the car. That is consistent with them not stopping. So somebody would have had to enter the car while they were stopped, and the only time that they are stopped is on that deserted road. So for that to happen, somebody would have had to have been, I would assume, following them, because they said that there's no cell data about them meeting up with anybody there. So somebody would have had to have been following them. But if somebody's following them, then it would have had to have been that they were only following them right. There's a very short stretch of road that they would have had to have been waiting on them to follow them when they were already out there, because the security cameras and traffic cameras did not capture another car behind them. So if that were the case, it would have to be somebody. I mean, why'd they go out to the middle of nowhere? Let's see. Let's see. The phone was being used after he was in jail. They can't prove he was the only person that used it. Yes, the phone was being used after he was in jail. That is true. There are recorded jail calls of him giving his manager the code so that they could use his phone. Let's see. Which is another thing. There's recorded jail calls of him giving his manager the passcode because nobody had the passcode to get into his phone. It was his phone, y'all. Bryson just tweeted our drinking game. Yeah, he tweeted our drinking game, and he tweeted the Trial Daddies thing. And he put it on his story on Instagram too. It's funny. That was a really cool interview. I'm glad we got to hear a lot of the inside stuff. They did not find anyone else's DNA. I was going to try to do a little graphic thing for that, but I was out of time. Maybe since there's no court Friday, maybe I'll try to do one then. Yeah. This prosecutor has been really frustrating because, the way that she's handling things is not great. Like sneaking information in and stuff like that. So, even yesterday when I went back in last night and I was watching to do my graphics and everything, that was the first time I noticed that piece of paper that she kept leaving up there was the pawn slip. So she has all these papers that, where Melly has listed that phone number as his phone number. So she keeps putting those papers up there to show that phone number, but she's putting different papers up there to show that, like, okay, this is a pawn slip where he said this is his phone number, and this is this paperwork where he listed this as his phone number. And which is one of those things that, they were objecting to on defense, but it could have been an accident, innocent until proven guilty, right? But it seems suspicious. I think she's doing it on purpose. I think she's trying to sneak information in there. Because if the jury keeps seeing all these papers where he's listing, this as his phone number, then, that might stick with them. Let's see. Somebody could have been lying on weight there. It's highly unlikely, but it's still possible. Yeah. It is highly unlikely. The only thing is, if they were waiting there, how would they be waiting there when they were all supposed to be going home? How would they know that they were just going to take a detour out to the middle of nowhere? Look, I want him to be innocent. I'm not saying I want him to be found not guilty. I want him to be found guilty. I want him to be innocent. I want to believe that he would not do this to his best friends and that there's some other explanation. I want to believe that, because I think it's awful if this is really what happened. And I am all for trying to find some other thing to believe in other than this would happen. But right now, it's still early, but right now I can't find any other logical solutions. And trust me, I've tried to think of alternate theories. I think it's awful if every time the screen moves, I think they're coming back. I think it's awful if this, if this is what happened. I hope not, but let's see. B-Dash says he is 100% guilty, just hard to prove. How many cases have we seen where someone was shot in a car with these circumstances? Yeah. I mean, it's not. As far as guilt or innocence, it's right now, it's like I said, it's, things are stacked against him as far as evidence goes. But as far as guilty, not guilty verdict, the state hasn't proven anything yet. What I'm really interested to hear is the actual, like, all the cell phone data and the pin drop location and stuff like that. I want to hear all that. The more information we have, the easier it'll be to make a decision. What if Sack in the back seat shot Juvie in the front, and then Portland was like, no, it can't happen, and then Portland shot Sack? The way that the bullets entered in the kill shots doesn't really support that. That's one of the hard things too, is that all the stuff that we've seen points to the kill shots coming from the rear passenger seat or the rear driver's seat. Mike Barbie says, there is stuff that the jurors will not hear about, like the story of the bloody weapon retrieved later that morning. The guy who was deposed about it.
You have to turn that over to the defense, and it could.
Making sure they're not coming back. There's, I mean, look, there's a lot of stuff that they're not. A lot of original people that were talking, and now they're not. Here, I'm sorry, I got distracted, so I'll finish posting this on the Facebook thing for those of you asking. Sorry, I see you asking, I forgot. I mean, I have it pulled up, but then I got distracted answering questions. So our data for YNW Melly shows he runs with that next. Maybe we're coming back now. All right, it's posted on the Facebook thing. Sorry, took me a second. I get distracted. There's a lot of people though who gave original statements and stuff who are now recanting, or who aren't cooperating, or who don't want to say anything. There's an article on complex.com that was really interesting. Are you waiting for me to pick you up? Come here. Oh, goodness gracious. There you go. Sit down. It's complex.com. I'll see if I can find the link. It was one of the things I was reading, but it goes into a lot of the stuff that we've kind of heard from some of the stuff behind the scenes. I know that there was a motion that was filed by the prosecution where they wanted the jury to, they filed a motion for the jury to go see where this is and how desolate it is and see the area and all of that. I think the motion was denied, if I remember correctly, but they filed a motion to see if they could get the jury to actually go see it. And that article on complex.com talks about a lot of the social media stuff, and the one exchange after all of it happened on Instagram where he says, when there's the message to him that says, asking about the drive-by and asking what was going on, if he was okay. And he said, I did that. Shh. And then it said after that, there was, from that same account that he messaged, they sent a thing saying that there's a Sig 9 on the market. And so they were saying that, the prosecution is going to use that one as well, saying that most likely it was a Sig 9, 9mm gun. And I guess Melly's account responded when they said there's a Sig 9 on the market. Melly's account responded that he wanted it, and they gave him a price or something. So I want to hear how all that stuff plays into this too, and what they think about all of that. that complex article too talks about some of the people who have given statements and stuff and then taken them back. And it talks about some of the stuff like the interviews with some of the moms. I know that I think it was Sack Chaser's mom. They had an interview with her saying that she had talked about kind of the same stuff that Juvie's dad was talking about the, money coming up. And she said that there was she said in her deposition actually, that there was, they were coming into some money or something. And she had said that I don't think she knew what it was for, but that Sack had said something to her a few days before he was killed about how it looks like he's not going to get his.
Coming back to Long Crime, everybody. Today marks.
They scare me every time they come back because it's like loud as hell in my ears. But she had said something about how he reached out to her a couple days before he was killed and said that he wasn't going to get his money after all or something like that. That he was like all upset and hysterical. And so that's in that article too. Let me see if I can find the link actually. Let me see if I can pull it up. I might have it in my history. Yep, here it is. Okay, so this is it. It's complex.com. Let's see. Let me find the part where it was. Falsely claimed about the drive-by shooting. Death qualified. The state has cell phone records tracing Melly's location during the time of the murders. There's a large amount of forensic evidence linking him to the crime. They have footwear impressions, crime scene reconstruction, and more as witnesses. They also want to drive the jury along the actual path they claim Melly and Bortland took during the morning of the murders. I think that was denied, though. They have access to much of his social media. Here's the Instagram messages. Okay, so after he said that I did that, not long after, here it is. Not long afterwards, the recipient of those messages tells Melly it's a Sig 9 on the market, meaning the state will likely claim a Sig Sauer 9mm gun, and Melly's account replies, I want it. The would-be seller returns with what appears to be a price. Let's see. Here's that part. As a possible motive, the lead detective on the case said in a deposition that YNW Sack Chaser was set to receive around $200,000 from his record label. The police attempted to subpoena 300 Entertainment during their investigation in order to investigate this, but the detective explained that the company refused to honor the subpoena. So that's not surprising, since now we know that the head of is he the head of it? The 100K track, his manager, I guess since he went there the next day, I don't know. And then here's the part about Sack's mom. She expanded on the $200,000 payment in a March deposition. Though she specified that she didn't know exactly who the alleged payment was from or what it was for. She said that her son reached out to her a few days before he was killed. My son hysterically called me. He said he was very concerned about my whereabouts. He was concerned about his sister's whereabouts. He's concerned like something is going to happen to us. And he told me that he would not get his money. He said, I'm probably not going to get my $200,000. I'm probably not even going to get my money, Ma. I said to the case's lead detective, I'm assuming Moretti, I believe something happened when it came down to my son. Somebody owed him some money because he said he wasn't going to get it. And then she said that the surviving YNW crew member's response to Sack's death was not what she expected. She said, so I'm like, they've got to know something because they're not acting right. They're acting strange. And then this is the part about the witnesses. So she said, it says several key witnesses gave statements to the police in the early stages of the investigation. However, once Melly was charged, they repeatedly missed scheduled depositions and have not responded to attempts from the state to reach them. Among them are Melly's ex-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton, which we know she was not wanting to come testify, and her mother, Felicia, who did come testify and wasted all of our time. She's the one who had sudden amnesia with everything. Initially, they told police that they received a call from Melly right after the shooting occurred, in which he said he'd been the victim of a drive-by. Since then, neither the state nor the defense has been able to contact Hamilton or Holmes. Now, keep in mind, this was before the trial, so this is obviously we know they got in touch with her because she showed up, but she had an ankle monitor on. I don't think she had much of a choice, but prosecutor claimed in court that in order to discourage their testimony, Melly's mother made a car payment for Hamilton. And Melly's manager, Jameson Track Francois, sent Holmes a $5,000 wire transfer. Melly's doing anything and everything he can to prevent them from showing up. The defendant is causing these witnesses to not be available. After the wire transfer from Melly's manager, Bradley said Felicia Holmes suddenly stopped answering the state's phone calls. Melly's legal team says that that's just what he does. He just takes care of his girlfriends. And then they say it's not witness tampering. State says it is. Oh, one potential witness who claimed that Francois and Henry hid the murder weapon after the shooting has, like Hamilton and Holmes, proven difficult for prosecutors to reach in recent months, and it's unclear whether he will testify. I think, is that one Jacoby Mills? I know that they filed a motion to try to keep his testimony out of here, and they try to keep his testimony along with Mariah and Felicia's out. But I'm not sure if that's who they're talking about. Another friend who was in the studio with Melly in the hours before the murders is listed as a potential defense witness, despite the fact that he has given conflicting statements to police about Melly's whereabouts that morning. The Broward Sheriff's Office Crime Lab has 66 pages of DNA records. That's what we went over yesterday. Talk about the proving the gang affiliation. His blood's allegiance pledge that he had on his phone. The gang witnesses, I think, is the one that they're trying to bring up next, if that's what I heard right. The document goes on to say that, I'm not going to play this on here, but if y'all want to click on it, you can. There's a video where, I guess, where is it? Maybe it's not on this one. There's a link somewhere where there's a video of, it's on YouTube, where there's a bunch of them. Dang, I keep thinking they're coming back, and they just keep taking forever and ever and ever. Keep an eye on it. Let's see. There was something about how one of his songs was kind of dissing a rival gang or rival section or something. I can't remember the details, so don't quote me on that. But it was something about that. And they had a video of whoever it was that he was dissing that were on video talking about murders and stuff. Let's see. Oh, maybe this is it. Hold on. Oh, yeah, this is it. He explains that his issues with Melly date back to the 2018 song Home Invasion because it took shots at the people he knew. So he took shots at him on Twitter, which they mentioned in openings, if you'll remember, that there were some social media people who were the defense said as potential leads, I think is how he worded it. Let's see.
The words KRS-One rapped in 1995 are more true today than ever before.
All right, we're back to waiting. Yeah, they're still, I guess they're still in Sidebar. They're not doing anything. Let me pull up Boom's Twitter and see if he says, oh,
Yes, sir.
finally.
Danny Polo, please spell your first and last name. DANNYPOLO. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and please have a seat.
Thank you.
Detective Polo, what's happened is you're wearing a mask now. Defendants have objected to that.
Yes, sir.
And the state indicated that it's been done in other courtrooms and there's a predicate for it, I guess because of safety and security is the way I understand it, specifically your safety and security.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct, madam?
Yes, sir.
So I want you to come in here. I want to take some testimony from you outside the presence of the jury just to verify all of this. So, Ms. Brandi, I want to inquire.
Detective Polo, how are you so employed?
With the Broward County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked for the Broward County Sheriff's Office?
Since 2015.
How long have you been assigned to the Strategic Investigations Division?
Since March of 2018.
In your time in the Strategic Investigations Division, or SAD, have you worked undercover operations?
Since that time and before.
And the undercover operations that you work, what type are they?
Majority of them are narcotics, firearms, violent crimes, gang-related investigations.
How many years did you spend specifically in the gang and organized crime section of the Strategic Investigations Division?
From March 2018 till 3 weeks ago.
Have there been credible threats on your life?
Yes.
Is there currently a credible threat on your life?
Yes.
In terms of is there an amount of money assigned to the death of you that has been offered up?
Approximately $50,000.
Wow.
In terms of your safety and security, why do you wear the mask for those reasons?
To protect my family. So I'm not walking around Broward County, Palm Beach County, Dade County, anywhere, and get ambushed by someone that might be looking for me. We've done cell phone warrants on multiple people in Broward County involved in the investigation work after threat. And outside of that investigation, there's photographs of deputies being sent around, people trying to figure out who I am and what I look like. And that's a kind of a concern for me. If it was just one person, I'd probably just write it off. But yeah, after 5 or 6 cell phones got downloaded and there was pictures of many deputies being sent around saying, "Is this Danny Polo?" I'm like, okay, these guys are actually looking for me.
And so, Detective Polo, with regards to the prior times you testified in court, did you testify earlier this month before the Honorable Judge Martin Fine?
Yes,
How were you attired?
I believe I was wearing this suit probably.
And in terms of your face, how was that done?
Same mask.
Have you testified before the Honorable Judge Michael Usan in this courthouse?
Yes,
Was that in or around February and March of this year, 2023?
yes.
And what case was that on?
That was the XXX Tentacion case.
And that was the death of that individual?
Yes,
How many times did you testify in that case?
it was twice.
How were you attired when you testified then?
Different suit, same mask.
And in terms of during that particular testimony, were individuals trying to call your cell phone and get in contact with you during the actual testimony?
Yeah, that happened.
And was this testimony live streamed as well?
It was live streamed.
Thank you.
You have any questions
Yes,
on this issue? Go ahead.
yes. What time did you get to the courthouse today and sit outside?
Just after 9 o'clock.
And were you wearing that mask?
No, sir.
In fact, you've been sitting out there for at least an hour unmasked as people were walking in and out, correct?
Correct.
Are you the only expert in the, dealing with gangs in DSO?
I believe I'm the only one that's testified as an expert at the Broward Sheriff's Office currently.
How about in the state of Florida? You know?
I'm sure there's other experts in the state of Florida.
And for the last hour, you've been right outside this courtroom where the doors are, correct?
Yes,
Unmasked,
yes,
as people in this group, including myself, were walking in and out, correct?
yes, sir.
You weren't concerned about your safety then?
No one knows who I was out there. And I was under the impression I wasn't going to be allowed to wear the mask. So I took that one on the chin.
I have no further questions.
Thank you. So, detective or deputy, I'm sorry, which is it?
Detective Deputy,
Regarding, you're telling me that you have fear for your safety.
for my safety, but more for the safety of my family.
And that's if you're faced with broadcast.
Yes, sir.
And you're indicating now that there's intelligence from BSO that there's some type of bounty or price on your life.
I intercepted it on a court-authorized wiretap through the state of through Broward County. It was a wire authorized by Judge Siegel. We had a gang investigation. During that investigation, there was conversations about placing a bounty on my head, upwards of $50,000. And since then, we've, as I stated before, recovered several cell phones in that investigation and other narcotics investigations, firearms investigations, an investigation in South Carolina that is tied to Broward, where photographs of deputies were sent with my name attached to it. People trying to figure out who I am, what I look like.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You step down just way outside.
Why not let him wear the mask?
Right.
I'm sorry, but
We're recessed.
if my phone is on, or my picture, like now we're on recess. Of course we are. Of course we are, because we just came back. So of course we're on recess. I'm gonna go and tell y'all right now, if like there were pictures of me on people's cell phones talking about a bounty on my head and being concerned for my family, you'd have to put me in contempt of court. I wouldn't go in there without a mask. I don't know why. They brought him to the stand because defense does not want to allow him to wear a mask on the stand. But why? Why does it defense? Well, I don't understand that. What's the problem with him wearing a mask? Somebody who might know why that would be an issue, let me know. I'm looking for anybody who might have any insight into what the problem is. Undercovers do it all the time. He is a gang expert. So, let me unpin this because once again, we're in another recess. I'll pin this one. We are in another recess. It seems to me like it's just, are they just, they don't want him to give any of the information about Melly's gang affiliation, or is it an intimidation tactic? I don't understand. Like, are they saying if he's not allowed to wear the mask that he won't, they're hoping he won't testify? They said they want to see his facial expressions in their objection. Well, that's BS. When your family's at risk and there's evidence of a hit being on you, maybe I haven't had enough sleep because I'm just getting annoyed now. Are we back? No. Yeah, the one in Travis Rudolph trial had partitions and no cameras and all kinds of stuff. If they want to, I don't know. I don't. They say the jury can't see his demeanor. Okay. Defense doesn't want him wearing a mask because it makes Melly and his friends seem more dangerous. Well, There's a hit on your head. But he's not an accuser. He's the gang expert. Certainly not unusual for a witness to wear a mask. I don't know why they can't just... I guess we'll find out what he says about it. Kathy Davidson, I think he should testify with just the judge, attorneys, and the jury, no gallery or even us for his safety. I agree. I mean, as much as I would like to hear what he has to say, if it's a danger to, you know, him or his family, I think they should do the, like, you know, do it the same way that they did with the Travis Rudolph. When, you know, like, they didn't have cameras, they didn't have audio, which now the audio, I guess, doesn't matter now because we've already heard his voice because they made him come up and talk. But I mean, I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting annoyed. Madam CJ No Walker says, issue, he wasn't covered approaching the courthouse. That's the defense's issue, which if he feared for his life, prosecution should have hid him better upon entry. Yeah, but did you hear him say that he thought he wasn't going to be allowed to wear the mask and nobody knew who he was? I think they should just let him wear the damn mask. I don't understand, but maybe it's 3 hours of sleep and I got my grouchy pants on, but it's a dang mask. For Christ's sake. Let somebody put a hit out on you and your family and see if you want to not wear a mask.
Welcome back, everybody. So we're waiting for day 7 of the...
We're always waiting. We're always waiting. I agree. 100%. I agree. They should have put him in a room. 100%. I totally agree with you. And yeah, I do agree with that too. Where if he would have worn a mask in the hallway, it obviously would have gotten a lot of attention. And from what Boom said, the courtroom looks small when we see the pictures, but he said that it's actually pretty big. And so if you know, you can kind of get lost in a crowd if you're there, you know. But also, if you're wearing a mask, you're not going to get lost in a crowd. But once he's up there and testifying, then he's no longer lost in a crowd. Hello, welcome. You're late. You're late, but you haven't missed anything. So far, the most exciting part of the day has been my graphics that I stayed up late doing that I could have done if I could have done this morning if I had known that we were just going to be in recess all day again. He is the gang expert, and we know that there's evidence on Melly's phone. He had the Bloods pledge and stuff like that, and they have all the stuff where, like, even Cortland won't have the C. He won't use the C in his name. He goes by Portland because Bloods don't use C's. They changed the alphabet for themselves. Nikki just gifted a membership. Nikki ZBZZ gifted a membership. Let's see who it went to. Whimsical Druid. And Shunka. Where'd it go? Shunka bacon. I thought I saw it somewhere. Where'd it go? I lost it. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Shunka bacon. New member. New member. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. So he thought he wasn't allowed to wear the mask, went in unmasked, so the fear wasn't an issue then. Like he said, the fear wasn't an issue then because nobody knew who he was. Once he gets up there and testifies, they will know who he is. If he testifies on a trial where they are broadcasting it and we all see his face, then everybody will know who he is and where he is. I don't understand why it's such a big deal. Let the man wear a mask. Or take everybody else out. If it's so big of a deal that they need to be able to see his face and all of a sudden it's a big deal for him, but it's not with any other undercovers ever, then take everybody else out. Keep them off camera. I agree. I agree. I agree. Should have been protected. Hot Mess Express rolls on. And yep, State messed up again if he thought he couldn't wear a mask. This is this is one of those trials that is just irritating me to my bones in so many different ways. Which the last one did too, but for different reasons. I didn't hear anything about the gallery being excused, but he had on the mask, I think, during this part, didn't he? You could see, like, down here. Okay, Miami Mike says it's not about the mask, it's about the prosecutor painting this picture that Melly is evil and put this bounty on his head. That's why they are going so hard. But he didn't say that Melly put the bounty on his head. That's my whole thing. If this is such a big issue, then just like don't have him on camera. You know, take the gallery out if you need to. Like I don't. Getting irritated. Samula? Sorry if I know I'm probably butchering how I said your name. So they want him to wear a mask to make Melly look like he is this dangerous guy to the jury. That's my opinion. I think it's stupid, honestly. And maybe I do have my cranky pants on because I'm going on 3 hours of sleep and I worked 17 hours yesterday, but I think it's stupid. If it's that big of a deal, there are, it's not like he's going to get up there and say, I have to hide myself because Melly's out to get me. He's freaking he's gang expert. Of course he's going to be hidden. Like, this is not something that's, hello, Nurse for God. Welcome.
I guess took place this morning. We started off with the
What is happening? Oh, we had 5
complaint about the
Gabby Smith gifted 5 memberships. Thank you.
monitoring in trial conversation between attorney and client. Mr. Jason came up initially and indicated that the microphone was sensitive and picks up everything, and so I had told him to remove it. Then afterwards, they came back with his producer, whose name escapes me, indicated that there is a meter on the microphone that will adjust its sensitivity, and they will adjust its sensitivity so as not to pick up any discussion between counsel and the client. They also indicated that they would not show the screen or take during the session have the camera pointed at defense counsel and or the defendant. It would only be as the jury is entering and leaving the courtroom. And I thought that was a acceptable compromise, with the understanding that they cannot capture any of the conversations, confidential, privileged communication between the attorney and client. They indicated they would make sure that didn't happen. And they're also going to adjust the location of the microphone, the way it's pointed. The second issue that came up was the mask, and the detective hello indicates he's a police officer detective, operates undercover. There's a bounty on his life, was picked up in wiretap communication. He has fear for his safety of him and his family, and with the understanding this trial is being live streamed, I understand his fear for his safety, and I understand the defense objects, the objection overruled, he'll be allowed to testify. This is something that I'm thinking, again, just trying to balance it, what we're doing. And my thought is that based on the testimony of the detective, that this would be an acceptable way to proceed. And I understand both the defense objection. The last thing has to do with the juror who's ill. Is Ms. Claudia Calzone-Mena. And again, as I indicated, she was admitted to the hospital. I know defense counsel asked that we just wait for her and just adjourn, not be in session today, but I have no idea. This is the second hospitalization for her. She was not admitted the last time she was in the emergency room, and it was something that was, the way I understood, dehydrated, something minor, food poisoning or something like that. But now she's admitted to the hospital because so it's a different situation. We have witnesses here. Juries already asked us questions about how long the trial's taking and when we anticipate it's going to be resolved. So my thought is we're moving on. Ms. Claudia Calzone-Mena is going to be replaced by the alternate, whoever the first alternate is. All right. So you have the witness here.
Yes, I just need to give drive back from the defense, the next husband, and want to they reviewed the evidence before the witness began testifying. I also sent copies of all of the text messages and what she's relying upon as well. And so for any specific instances or any other changes in terms of the testimony from the defense, if they wanted to say they provided the AKB state case with regards to the fact that the state, as they were partnering through this proceeding, has to prove that there are other individuals that are associated with a criminal street gang that are committing other such crimes. So the defense had mentioned stipulating at certain points. So before I call the witness, I want to make sure we had a final discussion before the state proceeds forward as planned.
Now, Judge, with respect to the series, I think it takes the form of 3 separate sets of exchanges. I actually think it's 4, but 2 are subsumed within 1 exhibit. With respect to those, we maintain our objection that it lacks the foundation to be introduced. We presented the court with cases that for social media and text exchanges to be admitted, one party to that conversation needs to be brought in, or which is the preferable method, or there's some other method of establishing the receiver and sender, authenticating those communications to be what the state represents them to be, or the offering party, whoever it is. So we object on those grounds, lack of foundation, and hearsay.
Thank you. Well, this is a different hearsay objection. You're trying to offer them for the truth of the matter asserted?
Yes, Your Honor. In terms of that, there is case law and approach on the copy to the defense. State v. Torres 304 781. This was a case in which the Honorable Maria Garcia Wood, Broward County bench excluded text messages and was found to be an error.
And what's the theory? What's the exception here?
It is a statement by a party opponent. They are statements of the defendant. The other statements from the other parties involved give context to those responses from the defendant.
I'm concerned it being a statement of a party opponent, that's where it requires some authentication to establish that it is a statement of a party opponent. And I think the phone handle for each one of these texts is Sack Chaser Howard. Sack Chaser being the nickname, as we have indicated before, of one of the decedents. The phone is not registered
Here we go
in the
again.
name
I'm gonna throw something.
of our client, Mr. Devons. The phone was not retrieved.
Are these all from the download,
Those
the
are-
extraction that was done?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you're maintaining, again, you're maintaining that it's not his phone. So, and that's why previously, you said it was hearsay objection. I overruled that because it goes to who's using and controlling the phone, circumstantial evidence of that. That's why I let it in previously. If you're saying that you want to demonstrate or document that it's his phone and you're going to show some of these texts or emails, we'll see where it goes. You make your objection, we'll see where it goes.
Okay, so that was with respect to the admissibility of it. Also, I think the state is just made a comment of trying to shift to the defense the burden of establishing the relevance of that which it proposes to introduce in evidence. Instead, we have here about 200 plus pages of documents. The defense can go through and tell me what they don't want me to include. That's not how it works. They have to establish the relevance of each one of those communications in order to introduce them. So again, we take exception and object to this reversal of roles. The proponent of testimony has to establish its relevance to introduce it. The state is saying, let the defense tell us what they don't like and we'll consider taking it out. That's not how it should work. That is an ominous and unreasonable burden on the court and on the defense to go through and ferret out that which is not relevant. They have to establish its relevance. So we would respectfully request that. I think the state indicated earlier that each one of these communications has to be gone through, and that's why this witness is going to take as long as they said it's going to take. And so when they do it piecemeal, we'll be in a position to make our objections as the evidence is being adduced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Free the jury.
Okay, so they are going to let him wear the mask. The objection to the mask is overruled. There was talk about the microphones being sensitive and picking up things that Melly is saying with his attorneys. And then the same juror that was in the hospital the other day is back in the hospital, so they're going to use one of the 3 alternates. And the defense once again objects to all of this information coming in, everything about the gangs, and once again is trying to say that all of this, he's putting it on the victim. He's saying that this is Zach's phone. Look, I want there to be, I'm glad that they are fighting as hard as they are because this is somebody's life on the line. But the thing about it not being his phone has just become annoying.
One more thing, Your Honor. I think the state yesterday had proposed to us the alternative of clearing the courtroom and letting this witness testify unmasked. And we think that would be much preferable to the masked situation.
Thank you. Then again, the news media has a right to be here as well. That's my concern, is you're trying to, it's just a balancing thing. I understand that was, I thought Mr. Adelstein indicated that it was something that was preferable to him. I agree. All right, we'll move forward.
Is the court going to give any type of curative instruction?
Excuse me 1 second. Hold on. You have some instruction on the read?
Yes, Your Honor. I think we would have to include that the court has made a determination that balancing the interests of this defendant's constitutional right to confrontation is superseded by the media's right to be in the courtroom. And therefore, he's being allowed to testify in a mask because those are the 2 interests that are being balanced. This defendant's constitutional right to confrontation and have the jury have an opportunity to discern the credibility of the witness versus the right of the media to have a camera in the courtroom. And so we would want that to be a component of any instruction that's given to the jury, and we'd like time to craft one because the court just ruled, and we'd like to come up with one proposal.
Go ahead.
Okay. Can we have some time?
Now, counsel, if you ever something short and sweet, you make a recommendation. I don't want this to go on for an hour. It's already 10:30.
I understand, sir, but this is extremely important. And we would ask for a 5-minute recess so we can fashion something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another recess?
Those are 5 minutes. Yeah.
We're on recess number 2. And we just got here. Haven't even had a witness yet. Hour and 35 minutes in. Haven't had a witness yet. This is where we live now. This is our life. This is our life. This is our life. I tell you what, I'm really glad that I have vacation coming up soon because I need it. Between the Travis Rudolph trial and now this one. Let me drink some more coffee. Maybe I'll get out of my cranky pants. Goodness gracious. Okay. Let's see. He said 5 minutes, so we'll see. This is recess number 2. We had our counters yesterday. Were a little wild. Oh God, I could have slept in. I could have gotten more than 3 hours. It's interesting that oh, Lucy's right here asleep on my. She just got up here. Now she's laying on my lap. She can sense that I'm annoyed. So anytime I'm annoyed or I don't feel good, she comes right to me and snuggles up to me. She's good about that. Yeah, I cannot believe the defense wanted to adjourn until the juror was out of the hospital. I wonder if it's like, no, the jury has not made it to the courtroom yet. I wonder if the jury's even good. Like, I mean, with all of this time in between, like, is that a defense tactic? Like, hey, let's take as much time as we can so that any of the evidence is forgotten? I don't know. Interesting. Jill C says, in my opinion, if the evidence was gotten legally, then bring it on and defense can poke holes in it. Is that not how it should be done? Yes. Yes. That is. Yes. 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 It is. It is. Yes, the juror is back in the hospital. I do feel for the jury. I mean, this is going to drag out for a really long time. I feel bad for the victims' families going through this for this long. You know, like in our interview yesterday with Boom, he was talking about how, you know, how much Sack and Juvy's moms are both struggling, and for trials that drag on and on, you know, that's a lot of emotional damage to everybody involved. I think that there are certain things that you need to take time out for because it's a trial. This is, you know, somebody's life on the line. So there are things that you need to take time out for. Absolutely. But I think that there should also be limits. Like that like, okay, it's defense's job to object to everything, pick holes in everything, do whatever they want. I get that. Totally get that. They're fighting for their client. This is what they do, and they're doing a fantastic job. But even like the, you know, wanting to adjourn until the juror is out of the hospital and stuff, like that's delaying everything more for, you know, dragging things out for these families. Hello, Shireen's son, Elliot Epic Gaming. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Moira 7765 says maybe it's me, but the defense becomes annoying. At this point, everybody's annoying me. The judge, the defense, the prosecution, they're all annoying me. I should have gotten more sleep maybe, but I stayed up doing charts. Let's see.
I believe I heard was, again, this.
Every time they come back, then I'm like, oh, great. That means we're not coming back anytime soon. This is just where we live. Could have been on the beach. Let's see. I think that one of the things that annoys me, because I was doing good until the whole issue with on the mistrial day, the whole
read out loud for the court. Based on the court's ruling, the next witness will testify wearing a mask. You are to listen and read evidence as you would any other witness.
Thank you. Can I see that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. And you have one?
We'd just like to say that would be impossible to do. Our proposed instruction is the court has ruled that the next witness will be permitted to testify with his face concealed with the exception of his eyes. The court has made this ruling because this witness has expressed that there have been threats made against his life by people unrelated to this case. Your jury instructions advise you to observe the demeanor and facial expressions of witnesses in determining their credibility. And obviously, you will not be able to do so in this case. You are committed to take the compromise of your ability to view the witness's facial expressions into account in deciding how much weight to attribute to his testimony. He is being allowed to testify in this fashion because the court has determined that the interests of the media in being present outweighs the defendant's constitutional right to face-to-face confrontation of witnesses against him.
Thank you.
That would be it.
Counselor, respectfully, I'm not, wouldn't be giving that instruction to the jury.
We
All right,
have-
let's bring the jury in.
So we're 2 hours in and the jury's now coming in. Let's see how this goes. Wait for it. It's coming. Another sidebar, another recess. Yeah, Peter, so that's my thing. Do whatever it takes to protect him and get his testimony. Whatever it takes to do whatever they need to do. As much as I want to hear it, my concern is would be more for the safety of him and his family. Just do whatever you need to do.
Jury entry.
Taylor says defense attorney willing to sacrifice the witness to protect his client. I think that's why I'm having a hard time with this, because that's how it feels. And I'm trying not to look at it like that, but that's exactly how it feels. And that's why I'm getting annoyed about this whole thing, because I feel like I'm working through my anger on it, trying to see it in a different light. But that's how it feels. So I think that's why I'm getting annoyed.
First of all, sorry for the delay. That's my fault. No one else is, and I apologize for that. Based on the court's ruling, the next witness will be testifying wearing a mask. You are to listen and to view and weigh this evidence as you would any other witness. All right, is this your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state would call Detective Danny Polo.
So you want to stand up, raise your right hand, be sworn? Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, but nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
State your full legal name for the record.
Danny Polo,
Please spell your first and last name for the full report.
first name's Danny, last name Polo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that microphone in front of you, adjust up or down, but not back and forth, all right?
Yes, sir.
Ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
Good morning, Detective Polo. How are you today?
Good morning. Well,
Can you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
I'm a detective with Broward County Sheriff's Office. My name is Danny Polo.
Prior to working with the Broward County Sheriff's Office, do you have any other law enforcement background?
I worked for the City of Hollywood Police Department,
And how long did you work with the state of Hollywood?
approximately 2 years.
How long have you worked for the sheriff's office now?
Since 2015, so approximately 8 years.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what division or unit you were assigned to currently?
I'm assigned to the Strategic Investigations Division.
What does Strategic Investigations Division, or SID for short, cover for the sheriff's office?
Within the Strategic Investigations Division, within SID, we have multiple county-wide units, such as Major Narcotics Unit, Organized Crime Unit, Gang Investigations Unit, Money Laundering Unit, Internet Crimes Against Children, Joint Terrorism Task Force, Bomb Squad.
So with regards to the SID, you do undercover investigations.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that why you're wearing a mask today?
In part, yes.
So going to the gangs and organized crime unit, what years were you assigned to that specific unit?
I was transferred to the Organized Crime Unit in March of 2018, and I was there up until about January of 2021.
Just pause just a moment.
We approach very, very close.
Take a shot, do a squat. Take a shot, do a squat. What is this, number 2 or 3? Is that 2 or 3?
Okay, Detective Polisar, we left off, you were talking
2.
about you'd been in the gang and organized crime unit since 2018?
Yes, March 2018, I was transferred to the Organized Crime Unit.
Prior to going to the organized crime unit, did you have a background in gang investigations?
Yes, I've been gang liaison for the city of Deerfield Beach since approximately the end of 2015.
And were you ever part of the multi-agency gang task force, or MAGTAF?
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a countywide task force with multiple agencies, not just Broward County. The way the Broward County Sheriff's Office is divided up into different districts. So the city of Deerfield Beach is its own district. Pompano Beach is its own district. All those districts have assigned liaisons that are to communicate with the gang investigation unit, as well as liaisons for other jurisdictions such as Sunrise PD or Hollywood PD, the non-Broward Sheriff's Office districts.
And what are the investigational goals or aims of the multi-agency gang task force?
Gang reduction, reducing gang violence, reaching out to the youth and trying to stop it before it starts, and just gang investigations.
So for the
Thank you,
last
Rosalina.
approximately 3 weeks, where have you been assigned?
I was just transferred locally to the money laundering task force.
And as part of the money laundering task force, do you still have an aspect of organized crime and gang violence that you focus on?
Yes, it all overlaps. The only difference is I'm not working the money laundering aspect of these criminal enterprises and gangs.
In terms of during your time from 2018 to 2023 in the organized crime and gang unit, how many times did you have a chance to work as an undercover agent?
Thank you, Pam.
I lost count. Many times I've done everything from street level narcotics deals, all the way up to international narcotics trafficking cases, firearms cases, stolen property cases.
More than 10?
Yeah,
More than 50?
Yeah.
Are you also credentialed by any other law enforcement agencies?
I am a task force officer with the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, and I'm also a task force agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Explosives, that's ATF.
And in terms of your responsibilities for those two agencies, what are they?
As part of being a task force officer for the DEA, I can conduct federal investigations related to narcotics. I can, instead of just charging and investigating cases on the state side and going through the state attorney's office or statewide prosecutor's office, I can file cases with the United States Attorney's Office like any other federal agent would. We have the same powers. And with ATF, it's the same thing. The powers of the ATF would be the firearms violations. So I can work firearms investigations on the federal level.
Okay, so you talked about doing gang investigations. What does a gang investigation entail?
You initially start, a lot of times you start by, you get complaints from the neighborhood, or whatever neighborhood is being affected by gang violence, or just you observe shootings that are happening in a certain area and you start looking into it to see if it's random or if there's something more organized going on. A lot of times we find that these violent crimes are being committed by members of criminal gangs. And once we've identified the criminal gang, the main goal is to identify which criminal gang it is. That way we know how to approach it. Some gangs are more structured than others. Some are very informal and don't have much structure at all.
So Detective Phil, if we could just go on a little bit on that, as the types of criminal gangs.
Sure.
Can you define for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what would be a national organized criminal gang?
So the national, they're called national gangs because they're found in multiple states. Doesn't mean every single state will have every single one of these gangs. So that most people see on TV, Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, the Mafia, biker gangs, low motorcycle gangs. These are national gangs. They have chapters, sets, they call them sets or lineups in multiple states, multiple jurisdictions, all over the country.
So Detective Foley, you also mentioned that sometimes they're a little less organized. Could you explain what a neighborhood street gang or hybrid gang is?
Neighborhood street gang is just that. When you have a neighborhood that hasn't, you have a group of 3 or more individuals involved in criminal activity, ongoing criminal activity, and they decide to take on common hand signs, colors, symbols, clothing, anything to unify them and show that they are a group. And they operate sometimes within a city, or they can operate within multiple jurisdictions, but they're working together and they've adopted these common identifiers. These gangs sometimes eventually will report to or turn into national gangs. But for the most part, there's many neighborhood street gangs. You can have one neighborhood, one 10 by 10, apologize, 10 by 10 blocks of neighborhood where you have 5 different gangs operating within that neighborhood. They might get along, they might not get along.
Okay, so in terms of the amount of time or resources that you put into a gang investigation, how long does it take?
We work every case differently because some of these cases require years of investigation because it might be very, very structured, or just have a lot of financial support due to whatever crime they're committing, and those gangs are a little harder to tackle. So you have to invest a lot more time, a lot more money, a lot more resources into dismantling this type of organization. Some of the more disorganized gangs, it's a little easier. You can go out there and find out, first of all, what crime they're committing, whether it's robberies, burglaries, narcotics trafficking, or just low-level narcotic sales, firearms trafficking, like firearms sales. And then if they're very disorganized, it's easy. You just work individuals instead of the entire organization. You just start picking off different individuals, get criminal charges on the people you can, identify who within these less organized gangs has the most, the stronger presence, because there's always someone who's not necessarily in charge, but the person that has the most respect. You start trying to dwindle it down so that the violence stops. That's the main concern, is violence.
So Detective Polo, what training and education do you have in the area of gang and gang organization?
At this point, I think I'm probably upwards of 500 hours of just specialized training in gangs, organized crime and money laundering. Like I said, it all kind of intersects. These are trainings that come all over the state.
Do you have any certifications in the area of gang investigations and specialists?
So I have a advanced gang specialist certification from the Florida Gang Investigators Association. And I have a gang specialist certification from the National Gang Academy.
Can you explain how you are certified and what requirements you have to pass before you can be certified by the Florida Gang Investigators Association?
Every year, the Florida Gang Investigators Association holds conferences. During this week-long conference, they put on a multitude of classes. They bring in either reformed gang members or gang members that are currently in custody. We can do interviews with them. They'll teach you about what it was like for them to join these different types of gangs, why they join these different types of gangs, the risk factors for the youth, how they think, the gang mentality, so that way we can better understand how to approach gang members when we're working with them. Because a lot of times we're not just arresting them, we're also trying to, in a way, befriend them so that they maybe understand they need to stop doing what they're doing, because they're either going to end up dead or in jail, and neither one is good for anyone.
So you mentioned that you've done the training. What about in terms of hands-on investigative experience? Can you list for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury some of the different specific gang organizations you have investigated?
So for most people in the general public wouldn't realize it, but Broward County and many cities and counties have huge gang problems. They just operate under the radar. Broward County has almost every gang you can think of, from the Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, Sir 13, which is a Hispanic gang that originated in the West Coast, Norteños, another Hispanic gang, outlaw motorcycle gangs, different gangs within the outlaw motorcycle gangs, not just one specific group.
Have you investigated, for example, white supremacy groups as a gang or organized crime?
White supremacy groups, yes. I mean, they operate way under the radar. They try to, they're strange groups.
So you mentioned Bloods, and that's what I want to focus on.
Sure.
Personally, how many Blood gang-related investigations have you done?
Specific investigations or suspects?
Suspects, sorry.
This last year, probably over 30.
430?
No, over 30.
Over 30. Okay.
Just maybe this last year.
And that's just in 2022?
Yes.
Oh. Have you ever testified in court on the subject of gangs and gang violence?
Yes, I testified in both the state and federal court.
Approximately how many times?
Maybe 6 times.
Okay. In terms of the sources of knowledge on gangs, you mentioned a couple at the conference, the interviews with documented gang members. Could you tell us a little bit more about those types of interviews and the different types that are out there?
So, as gang investigators, we gain this knowledge not just through doing search warrants and finding documents that these gang members But these gangs generate, they create documents with their creeds, their codes, their oaths, the rules, bylaws, all that. So there's a lot to learn from that because it's written documents that we pass on from member to member. Because like every organization has rules, right? The sheriff's office has rules. We work for Publix has rules. They have a code of conduct. They have what we have to dress. They have appearance guidelines. It's the same thing with gangs. It's no different. The national gangs have that a lot more structured. Some of these, we call them Bibles, game Bibles. They're very lengthy. Some can be over 100 pages. So we learn a lot from those. The other side is interviewing and speaking with gang members. Sometimes it's gang members that we interview because they decide to cooperate with law enforcement to avoid either being prosecuted or to get a lesser sentence. So they're working off charges. Sometimes we interview gang members on an arrest. They don't want to cooperate with law enforcement. They don't want to reduce their charges. They don't care. They're okay with going to jail or seeing how the legal system works out. And, if you build a good enough rapport with them, which is the main goal, speak kindly to everyone, just be polite, treat everyone like a human being. I've had great success in interviewing many, I wouldn't even be able to tell you how many gang members.
Can you explain what is a field interview or FI card?
Field interview is it's done commonly in the field. You approach someone on the street, they committed a traffic infraction, some kind of infraction, you make contact with them, or it could be consensual, you just see someone you want to talk to, approach them, talk to them. If they don't want to talk to you, walk away, that's fine. But like I said, if you treat people with respect, most of the time they'll talk to you.
When you're doing a field interview, what types of data are you collecting or aggregating at that point?
The first thing I do if I'm talking to someone is as I'm gathering their information, if they decide to give me their information. There's times people will decide to talk to you, but they won't give you their name, and that's fine. But I'll be looking at their person, at their body, to see if they have any tattoos, if they're wearing any specific colors, especially if I know that they belong to a specific gang. So if I see a member of a neighborhood street gang that wears military colors, right, camouflage, then and I see the person walking in this neighborhood where primarily this is what they wear, I decide to make contact with them, they decide to talk to me, then I'll start noting those things. Okay, he's wearing a bandana with the camouflage colors, or he's wearing a belt with camouflage colors, or he's got this type of tattoo that's indicative of this gang. So even if they don't talk too much, sometimes their body tells you a lot. The way they're dressed, the way they stand, all those things are things you take into account.
You mentioned some times people would testify. Do you review testimony of various criminal cases across the country for gang information?
Yeah, we review testimony of gang members that are testifying in court. We review testimony, not even just testimony, we review indictments and indictments on the federal side and the state side, and read about these gangs and how they were investigated. And then we learn about the different types of ways that the gangs operate in different parts of the county or different parts of the state. Because just because you're a member of the Bloods doesn't mean that the Bloods operate the same in every city or every county or in every state. The rules are the written rules, but the rules are bent.
So with regard, you also mentioned intercepted communications, like wiretaps. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what is a wiretap and how you use it in a gang investigation?
Wiretap is a lengthy process where you first identify someone who's committing criminal acts. So in the case of a gang member who's committing criminal acts, they're involved in criminal activity. And once you've developed enough probable cause to believe that they are using the phone to conduct this criminal activity, you start drafting a wire intercept application. It's a very lengthy document. It's not an overnight thing. How you see on TV where you just ask a judge for a signature and they give it to you. You have to show that you have exhausted every means of investigating this person or this game. So you can't just go up on this person's phone and start listening to their communications. You have to be able to explain that you weren't able to conduct an investigation because surveillance wasn't possible. Because let's say on a game case, the neighborhood is controlled by the game. You can't do surveillance at these neighborhoods sometimes. As soon as you walk in, or drive in, they'll know your car doesn't belong and they'll get approached. Many times that's happened to me.
So Detective Polo, specifically on wiretaps, once a wiretap is authorized, what do you have to do for the communications that are intercepted?
You pick a schedule based on the person's activity. So if the person is on the phone 24 hours a day, then we try to cover 24 hours a day of communications where someone is sitting inside a room on a computer just monitoring live phone calls. As the person makes a phone call or gets a phone call, you are getting that phone call too. You're listening to it. You're identifying whether it's criminal in nature. If it is criminal in nature, you continue to listen. If at any point in the conversation it becomes non-criminal in nature and they start talking about, the basketball game or what they're doing over the weekend, then you stop listening. It's called minimizing. You turn off the call and you follow the rules of minimization. So you spot check the call at that point. Then you check the call. The rules are different for every case, so I can't say it's this many minutes here, this many minutes there. But you would stop listening for a certain amount of time, the rules that were determined by the prosecutors, and then you begin listening again. If you start listening again, you hear evidence of criminal communications, and you continue to listen for the amount of time that they're.
So Detective Polo, for wiretaps, how many hours do you think, can you tell the jury, you've spent listening to criminal conversations on wiretaps?
Hundreds, if not 1,000, maybe more.
Is there a special vocabulary that you learned during the course of listening to wiretaps?
So every gang has every culture has their own way of speaking. So a lot of gangs come up with code words. Some organizations that aren't gangs have the same thing, and you have to decipher them basically. And with gangs in these Bibles, they sometimes put their codes, and it's easier to identify certain what certain things mean. So they might be speaking slang, but we know what they're saying because we either have basically a dictionary that they've created that we already have in our possession. Context, you start understanding what they're talking about.
Okay, so then it's a good segue to go into, you mentioned the Bibles and things. Have you had the opportunity as a gang member to conduct search warrants and see some of these transactions?
Yes.
Could you explain some of the things that you've gotten out of, like, for example, email accounts?
Chill with the mic.
Yeah, so a lot of gangs that are sending these Bibles around, they don't want these Bibles, these books of knowledge. They call them knowledge. They don't want these things in the hands of law enforcement because they don't want law enforcement to understand their inner workings. And sometimes every couple of years they'll revamp their books of knowledge. They'll change their codes. They'll change a lot of the rules. The original history with books of knowledge is going to remain the same, right? You can't change the date the organization of the game was established. It was established in 1996. It was established in 1996. You can't change that in your Bible, but you can change your codes. You can change the language you're using. You can change some of your rules depending on what's been going on in the world. It's a lot of gangs. Most national gangs were started a long time ago in the 60s and 70s and they were racially divided. Now, they're not. Now you have white people, black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, all working together in the same gang that used to just be a black-only gang or a white-only gang, not including white supremacy gangs and stuff like that. Those are
Okay, so you mentioned sometimes it's seized through email accounts and search warrants on that. What about the interception of cell phones or extractions of cell phones from known or suspected gang members?
So if we have enough probable cause to seize a cell phone during an investigation, and it's let's say a on a cell phone, we'll do a download of that cell phone, make a copy of it basically, and then we can go through the content of that cell phone. Sometimes we can do the entire phone, sometimes just specific things that you're looking for. And in those phones, it contains, a lot of times it'll contain photographs of these books of knowledge, because that's how people also send it to each other. So this oath, here's a picture of
I need to leave that microphone alone.
knowledge. Or it's just communications back and forth, and just texting each other and explaining to each other, this is what you need to know when you talk to this next person who's gonna quiz you on your knowledge. And if you don't know your knowledge on these national gangs, there's usually some repercussions. Maybe early on in the game when you're brand new, they take it a little easier on you. But as time progresses, the more time you spend in these games, you're expected to know these things off the top of your head, and you can't mess up.
So when you say things you're supposed to know off the top of your head, are there questions and required responses?
Okay, so that's something that a lot of games do. It almost feels like they all kind of copy each other. There will be greetings, and the greeting has a specific response. And the purpose of that is to know if someone is really a member of this gang. So a lot of times gangs have national gatherings where they'll host a large event for all the gang members in the country. Whoever wants to come, to just come, meet, socialize, and network with other members of this organization. So as an example, there's a Bloods gang, Blood set called 5-9 Brims. They host their national day on May 9th, because May is the 5th month. They're 5-9 Brims. So May 9th, 5-9, it's all symbolic, right? So they'll meet up, and they'll usually go on videos, on live streams, and post like these events, and just everyone's wearing their colors, and you'll hear a lot of the language, you'll hear a lot of the slang, and that's another way that we pick up on how these gangs operate.
So Detective Cole, you're telling this juror that people go and put criminal gang activity online.
Well, the criminal gang activity would be the crimes. They're not, maybe sometimes they post the crimes on YouTube to show that they're strong, or to still fear neighborhoods. But sometimes they're just showing their presence. Hey, we're here, this is who we are, this is what we wear, and don't forget that we're here. They're not necessarily doing anything illegal in those videos, they're just, it's a gathering.
Is it illegal to be a member of a gang?
No.
How would you differentiate a criminal street gang versus the sheriff's office? Y'all wear the same uniform, you have a hierarchy at the sheriff's office. How would you differentiate that from a criminal street gang?
So the definition per the statute, Florida state statute, and most of the statutes across the country read the same. It's a group of 3 or more persons with common signs, symbols, colors, identifiers, who are, as the primary activity, are engaged in criminal activity. So the keyword is, as part of their primary activities, they are conducting criminal activities. Doesn't mean all their activities are criminal activities, but a good portion of them are.
Okay. So to going back to a little bit more of your training and experience, you mentioned about the conferences and trainings that you've done. Approximately how many of those have you attended while you've been in the gang unit?
I think my first conference was in 2016. I've attended every conference since then. The next conference is this August. I'll be attending the national conference in Chicago. I'll be teaching the courses at that conference.
Can anyone sign up for that conference?
People in the field, prosecutors, attorneys, law enforcement, corrections officers, victim advocates, youth counselors.
So how many times have you taught at those types of conferences in the past?
This will be my first time teaching at the conference. I teach at the Broward County Sheriff's Office. We teach the new recruits, the new deputies that are coming in. We teach them about the gangs that we have in Broward County so that they're not oblivious to what's going on around them. We'll show them a map of which gangs operate in which areas, what to look out for, hand signs, identifiers, tattoos. So that's something we teach to our recruits. We teach, I taught at the Broward College at the Police Academy, where we taught the school resource officers, because gang involvement begins at a very young age for the most part. Most gang members join their gangs at early ages, 11, 12, 13, recruited very young. So school resource officers need to know what to look for so they can stop juvenile gangs from forming, because a lot of times these juvenile gangs that are starting in a school will then expand and join larger neighborhood gangs or national gangs, and then that's when you start having problems, because the juvenile gang members have something to prove, and they usually get a little more violence.
So you also mentioned some of the social media content before. Are there individuals who put out videos or commentary about gang activities?
Yeah, we're in the era of social media, so everything's on social media right now. Gang members across the country are posting stuff that probably would have never been posted years ago. Their knowledge, history, things they did when they were incarcerated, how the gangs were formed, the leaders and the founders of these gangs that are now no longer in prison, do podcasts and talk about how the gangs were formed, when they were formed, who did what kind of violence they had to commit, why they were created, whether they were created because they needed to form to protect themselves against another gang, or whether it was just unified based on race or based on location, geographical things. We have that here in South Florida. So this is all publicly available, and it's national leaders and national founders of these gangs that are putting out these videos, as well as just regular gang members on the street that are not of any special rank. They post up videos, they find out someone is claiming to be a blood or a Crip, and they're not. They'll confront them on social media to get views, and some of these confrontations turn into physical assaults. People get called out for being for false flagging, so they call it false flagging, or just pretending to be, claiming to be part of a gang that they're not.
Okay, and so I think the last aspect of gang knowledge that we haven't yet discussed, the undercover investigation.
Yes.
Could you explain briefly how those are conducted and what types of information is brought back?
So we do undercover investigations on most gangs that we can do them in pretty much almost any gang. So some gangs are a little trickier than others based off what the requirements are, obviously. Very organized gangs do background checks sometimes, stuff like that. That makes it a little more difficult. But we've infiltrated gangs. We have detectives within the Brown Sheriff's Office and within the other agencies that we work with. We've actually infiltrated gangs, been blessed into these gangs, become gang members, been put on the national books, and no one knows. I mean, that's what we can't say those names, but
Understood. Is this something that's done for like the Bloods, the Crips, as well as the Mafia and things that's been done for many years in this particular area of investigation?
yeah, the Mafia is a great example. That was done a long time ago with the Mafia. It's been done with Bloods, Crips, outlaw motorcycle gangs have been infiltrated multiple times. Most recently, we infiltrated several blood gang sets. We had several detectives that are blood gang members in their undercover lives.
Do they bring back and share the knowledge with the other members of the Organized Crime and Gang Task Force?
That's the best part about those investigations, is that it's not just that we gain this intelligence, but we corroborate everything that we're getting from either informants or from people that just want to talk to us on the street. We're not just taking our word for it. They're telling us exactly what to do. Hey, you need to learn X, Y, Z. The next time we meet again, you need to learn this oath. You need to know this handshake. You need to know what to wear. You need to know what to say when you meet this guy. You're going to meet the next boss up, because everything it's organizational. So you're going to meet the next person up, and they're going to keep quizzing you. They're going to find out where you are in your process with the game. So if you're a very young gang member, not of an age, but young in the game, you might have some leeway, but we've had those instances where we're meeting other gang members and our undercover might have messed up the handshake and everyone's kind of freezes. So looking at that person like, who is he? Because that's the first thing he should have known. How did he mess that one up? And then we kind of have to recover from that. Little things. So these are things that have corroborated all this information that we gained from phones, emails, social media, interviews. That's the icing on the cake for us.
Mayor, I just want to tender for defense to go out there in the area of expertise and gang knowledge. And
Thank you, counsel. Before we do, we're going to take a short recess. Do not discuss the case. Don't form any opinion about the case. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Seriously? Another recess. So we are on recess number 2. No, number 3. Oh, God. This trial's going to last until...
Along with the defendant and the witness, detective, the court reporter saying she had a little difficulty because you're facing the jury a lot. So if you could just speak up, all right?
Yes, sir.
Can I see counsel sidebar, please?
yes, sir.
Sidebar number 3. Oh, goodness gracious. I was going to try to listen, but I can't handle that noise and I can't hear anything they're saying anyway. The recesses are killing me all. So she just asked to qualify him as a gang expert. So all of that stuff, they have to go through like a million different things about how to, what the process is about, those 3 hours of sleep are catching up to me. About him investigating gangs and what's involved in it and what he's doing and blah, 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 yada, 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 as Letitia would say. So it is extensive. But I guess a lot of the stuff that, from what I understand, a lot of the stuff that they're about to bring in has different things to do with some of those different processes and gangs and stuff like that they just mentioned. So I guess she has to lay all the foundation, but it's a lot. Foundation. Goodness gracious, I'm going to have to get another cup of coffee. The foundation stuff gets extensive. Let's check out Boom's Twitter and see what he says about the courtroom. Maybe that'll wake us up. I need to wake up. He's got his mom on one side of his neck, and he's got the victim's mom on the other side of his neck. All right, let's see. Boom says, an hour ago, sorry, I don't mean to make y'all yawn. I know it's contagious. I'll make me some more coffee in just a second. I tried to lean off screen to yawn. It did not work. I'd have fallen out of my chair. That would woke me up, though, actually, if I fell out of my chair. Boom says, Melly's attorney, David A. Howard, shares a textbook clarification on the prosecution procedure for the removal of all irrelevant evidence to Judge Murphy III and the courtroom. Judge Murphy III agrees. And then he talked about the juror. The previously sick juror has been replaced with an alternate for the remainder of the trial. And he retweeted the trial daddy thing. That's really funny. And he asked, does the deputy officer wearing a mask while testifying for his safety paint Melly as dangerous to you? So many recesses. Let's see. Disguised. Yeah, everything else that's tweeted so far is stuff. Boom talked about our, he tweeted about our game. He said, with the constant sidebars, viewers have developed their own game to account for every Judge Murphy initiated sidebar for the rest of the trial, where you have to either take a shot or do a squat. That's funny.
Of these gangs, but I'll see how it ties more into the trial.
That guy scares me. I have, every time they come on, they start talking in my ear and it scares me. And now he's back. Let's see. Yes, I believe they are. I think I guess one of them said something about it, about all of this taking a long time because of all the recesses and stuff. Let's see. They already put out a picture of the undercover. Are you saying on social media and stuff? That's messed up if they do. Let's see. Miss Beasy says, no more dangerous than when the officer's identity was hidden in other trials. It wouldn't make me think he was hiding from the defendant, but just to keep his undercover status. That's what I think too. It's not uncommon. Oh, let's see. Pig is out for Monday when he testified in the Scott Peterson case. No. Boom wouldn't. He wouldn't show it. Virginia, welcome. I wish I had just woken up too. I've been up for 5 hours and have learned nothing new yet. Yes, I drink coffee. Actually, I have a Mr. Coffee iced coffee maker that my ex got me, and I love it, and I use it every day, and it was like literally one of the best gifts ever. He shipped it to me. He lives back in Ohio, and he shipped it to me here as a surprise. Oh, sorry, y'all. I'm gonna stop yawning. But it's you put the coffee in there and you put the ice in there and in the cup, and it makes coffee in the mornings. And all you have to do is like hit a little button and it makes iced coffee. It's so good. It's too hot in Florida to drink hot coffee, so I don't drink hot coffee very often. Shout out to my ex for that. Yeah, I love my ex. He and I are still really close. He's the best. Anjanette posted. Anjanette posted. Let me look.
Assistant State Attorneys, the juries in the jury room regarding the two messages I received from one of the jurors don't know how you want me to proceed. The second message, we just took a break right away. She just said she needed a moment.
Oh, with the mask. I posted
I don't
it.
know what you want me to do.
Okay. We have a list of proposals in order.
You talk to the state about anything?
No, not yet.
No, I know the state's okay with the first one, which is allow this for the court to reconsider its position with respect to this witness testifying with a mask. The state had indicated to me yesterday that they would agree to him testifying without a mask. And as a matter of fact, I think the witness said that he anticipated that's what he would have to do. And the only proviso would be that the courtroom would have to be cleared and the phones of all people present during the testimony would have to be confiscated. We would suggest that that would be remedy number one that should be employed.
So I think the problem with that logic is it's assuming that it's the witness's mask that is making her uncomfortable, not the testimony about gangs. Because if she is uncomfortable and upset because she was wronged by a gang member when she was young, and that's the concern, we need to know that. So I think that's the first problem that we have, because we have to get the actual reason as to why she's concerned.
Well, within context, the first note indicated that was a question. Why does he get to see us and we don't get to see him? So I think that lets us know that it's the mask that's of concern and that the presumption of being robbed was being robbed with a mask. If it's gangs, we did a thorough voir dire during which the issue of gangs was addressed, and she's passed that hurdle, so it's not a gang issue, it's a mask issue. So that would be our first proposal. And if the court's willing to do that, I guess we don't need to get to a second proposal.
My concern is the second message that the juror sent over, where she asked for a moment. But so the record's clear, it says, I need a moment. I can't listen properly. When I was a child, I've seen someone get robbed and I am having an anxiety attack. So my question is, if she's able to proceed with it, or if this is going to somehow color her thinking. That's what I'm mostly concerned with respect to counsel. Sure. And that's a sword that can cut either way.
Oh, I understand. But
that's what I'm more concerned, and I'm also concerned about trying to interfere somehow with the jury's process. And she just needs a moment. Maybe we just send them to lunch now and not worry about it. But I'd still like to find out as to if she's going to be able to follow law and whatever happened. I mean, I don't know if she's already on the jury. She's already been accepted. You answer all your questions. I think we've crossed that bridge already.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm concerned, and I don't know how to.
And I understand and appreciate the court's concern, but the question is, what is precipitating her anxiety? And it's the mask. And yes, we can clarify that with her. I have no problem doing that, but it can't be gangs because we discussed that at length during voir dire, and she cleared that hurdle and was put on the jury. Yes. But that would be our first proposition. If the court would consider that, that would be great. The second proposition would be, the first of her two notes was a question. And it was, why can he see me and we can't see him? Which goes to the heart of the confrontation clause. And also lets us know that her concern is the mask. And the jury instruction that was proposed by the state and accepted by the court doesn't address the question at all. It says, consider him like everybody else. Well, how are they going to do that? They're going to be instructed the way that they consider him as judging facial expressions, which they can now not do. We made we proposed a jury instruction, which the court rejected, and we would ask that the court at least consider whether or not it would offer some variation of that, such that the answer to the juror's question can be met, which is why. That's why. And I think they need to know that the why concerns does not concern any issue with respect to this particular defendant. The third is the problem that we had before, which is, as brought out during Mr. Alistein's questioning earlier. The state could have chosen any expert in gangs. They elected to choose one who has threats against his life that don't concern this case and is undercover. And therefore that they have precipitated this problem. I think Mr. Mr. Melly,
Don't know his
I
name?
think our client has a right to a jury of his peers, one which has been selected and is seated, and his right to both confrontation and to a juror that has been seated supersedes all of the rights of the media, of the state to have an expert who, or a witness who could have been, and when they could have chosen any other expert. But our third proposition would be that we take the break and address this after lunch, after the jurors had an hour or so, and we then bring her in and see what her problem is. If it's not the mask, I'd be highly surprised, but maybe that's the first step. But we'd ask the court first to reconsider, and second, to reconsider letting him testify in this fashion, and second, to reconsider reading an instruction that gives the jury a little bit more than he's testifying in a mask. Let's continue.
If you have an instruction that's agreed to, I don't really have an issue with it. My issue was the way you drafted and crafted this instruction is that I'm telling the jury that I'm looking at the media's right to be here over his right to confront his accuser, and that's not the way the way it was crafted and worded to me was not the right way to handle it, and I wasn't going to do it.
Okay.
All right. So the second issue that you had is having the witness, and it was a testify without a mask. I don't have any issue with discussing that further with the witness. I did this because he told me he was in fear for his safety and his family's safety, and this is what he does for a living. And I made my decision based on that because this is being a live stream. I don't know whether or not he would how he feels about it, and I guess that's subject to further discussion. As far as taking a break, I think that's the best way to handle it. We'll take a break, give the juror an opportunity to go have lunch, and once she comes back, the first order of business that we can do is to talk to that juror about how she feels and whether she's able to continue. If everybody's okay with that, that's the way we do it. Proceed, just see how she feels. If she's not suffering from anxiety anymore, if it's strictly an issue of the mask, then we'll know where that stands and we'll address it. And I ask the witness then how he feels. So we'll take it one at a time. All right. So let's do this. We're going to take our lunch and recess now. Any objection, Gary? I told the jurors not to discuss the case. Just tell the jury to come back at let's say 1:15. All right, or 1:30. Say 1:30. All right. Give her a chance to relax, and jurors back at 1:30. Okay. So
Attorney's back at 1 or 1:15?
Quiet.
Attorneys to be back at 1 or 1:15?
I want some further discussion with you because counsel raised an issue about these text messages that are on the phone, and I'd like to see about getting some clarification for that. All right. So Gary, you tell the jury to proceed back at 1:30. All right.
Okay. And there's one other thing, maybe, and I figured the last part of the jury instruction would be that with which the court took exception. That's why I put it at the end, so it could be easily excised. We do propose that as the proper instruction, but we'd like maybe to copy the rest of what we have proposed so that the court can look at it over the break and the state can look at it over the break. I have excised that last portion, and maybe we'd be better informed to discuss it upon return.
That's fine. So regarding this witness, let's just, I don't know what the documents are, but I'd like to proffer basically how this is getting in. I understand there's an extraction, and I understand that was done, but I haven't seen what proposal or the summary from the extraction was.
And I have this, if you want to look at them over lunch, I'd be happy to provide them.
Sure. You gave a copy of this to council?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we do that.
But these would be the ones I'd be trying to introduce as the color copies. They're easiest to read.
So these are for what you intend to introduce at the time of trial,
Yes, Your Honor.
all right?
So there's also.
And so council's objection basically was, and again, to reiterate, I let the extraction in because it was taken from the phone. The defense's position is that there's no indication that it's the defendant, Jamell Demons' phone. And your position was that what's on the phone is evidence of who's had care, custody, control, and who's using the phone. Am I understanding the argument correctly?
Correct, Your Honor. And so those messages go to show that as well. So there are some, for example, some pictures and things where pictures of the defendant and the other person involved in the chat are talked about, that they're acknowledging that that is who is communicating with one another. One of those photos has already been introduced. That was the photo that was authenticated by Felicia Holmes. That was a photo of the defendant and Frederick Gibbons, which is also known as Frito Bang. That is the approximately 50-page statement that you have in front of you. Other ones include, there's photos of the defendant with other individuals that are identified, and there are also cross-referenced with the emails that are sent to the defendant's email and retrieved on that same phone, as well as hundreds of photos, selfies, screenshots of the defendant using that phone.
With respect to the authentication, Your Honor, I think there's a little bit more nuance to our argument, which is it's not sufficient to say that the defendant used that phone at some point. I think there's ample evidence that that phone was used by more than one person.
Oh, Jesus, I'm so sick of this argument.
Poignant and striking evidence of that is that the phone comes back to the name Sack Chaser.
That has nothing to do with anything. I'm getting annoyed.
What that means, I know that my phone doesn't come back with the name Christine Bradley because I wouldn't do that. And I think that is a clear indicator that that phone was being used by others. And so the issue is not whether or not, if we can show that it was used by Mr. Demons at some time, everything comes in. The issue is if you want to get in conversation A, prove that conversation A laid the foundation for conversation A. Prove that conversation A was being had between Mr. Demons and somebody else, and that would be at least some measure of authentication. The case law does indicate that one of the two parties to the conversation is the way to go, and that's the way to authenticate it, but it's not exclusive. But each single conversation as it's coming in should be authenticated, because the fact that the phone was passed around and used by several others, we have presented the court with evidence that that phone was being used while Mr. Demons was in custody. We know it's being used by several other people. It's not in his name and it wasn't recovered from him. And so the issue isn't whether or not he's ever used it. The issue is each conversation that you're trying to put in, authenticate it, lay the proper foundation so that we're not risking misleading this jury.
Thank you. And counsel, this is on this extraction report is all on the phone with the 9807 phone number, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. And just so.
And that's the subscriber of that was Jamie King.
Yes, the
And
defendant's mother.
it's the information that's from T-Mobile, I forget the exhibit number, but which had to subscribe and showed that this 9807 line was signed or used by Mr. Dennis, the defendant.
That there's other information that the state has introduced, including the pawn receipt in which Mr. Demons is identifying that as his personal phone number.
I realize that, but I'm
There's-
trying to go back to the subscriber information. I thought that was and I don't have it in front of me, but the plan was a family plan or something, and Ms. Jamie King had one phone, is that correct? And Mr. Demons had a different phone?
There are multiple phones on that plan, including one of the victim's phones that was used by the victim. Mr. Anthony Williams was on that same phone plan that Ms. King was paying for, that the defendant was using. And so in terms of any evidence that anyone else was using that phone, Your Honor, there's been proffers of things that will supposedly be said by the defense. However, there is no evidence before Your Honor that anyone else other than the defendant used that phone.
Your
And
Honor,
I'd be happy to put together over lunch a compilation of every single one of the screenshots that the defendant took on almost every FaceTime call that includes him in this small box, which would be indicative of who is using that phone, and the other individuals that he is calling as the larger picture.
Your Honor, some of the evidence is before you now, which is Mr. Williams, who was also on that plan, was also using that phone. His nickname was Sack Chaser. Right before you, you will notice that all of those messages are coming from Sack Chaser. I'm not claiming that that means that all of those messages are from him. I am saying it's proof dispositive that the phone was being used by him at times,
Let the jury
or
decide.
that would never have materialized.
Let
in
the
that
jury
way.
decide. Let the jury
And this
decide.
notion that you go to a pawnbroker, yes, maybe the day that Mr. Demons was at the pawnbroker, he gave that phone number because he knew it was one he could reach. Just like last night when I went to go buy face cream for my wife, they asked, do you have a number with us? And I gave them her number because that's the number that is associated with our Walgreens account to get credits. And when I go to Total Wine and they ask me, I give my number. And that's how that works. And so the fact that he may have identified that as a phone that he could be contacted at when he did a certain pawn transaction is not dispositive proof that he's the exclusive user of that phone. The fact that Sack Chaser's name is associated with that phone is dispositive proof that he was using that phone. And the fact that the phone was being used after Mr. Demons was incarcerated is also dispositive proof that the phone was being used by others. And the way that we can solve this is that the state can lay the foundation for each conversation they want to get in. And if they can't, it means they don't have the proof that it is him. If they can, then they do have the proof and it should be admitted. But that's all we have.
Thank you. And the phone itself, when was the extraction done?
The extraction was done February of 2019, I believe February 23rd or 28th, I don't remember exactly, it's on the analysis. The report that is generated, which is what's been put in evidence, is generated in June of 2019. This was the phone that the defendant's manager brought to the state attorney's office and was identified during that conversation by the defendant's manager as being the defendant's phone that he was given after the defendant went into custody. There are multiple messages and things that I'm happy to show the court that, because that item is in evidence, and I can put together a composite over lunch to show exactly the number of times the defendant is pictured on that phone, including the various accounts that have already been introduced, such as the Snapchat account, the email accounts, of which we have the Apple records and the certification on that. For those phones, that it comes back to YNW Melly booking at gmail.com. And that email address, in the terms of when that was created, all of that is also subject to the search warrant, specifically which this witness looked at, which we can talk about the creation date of the account, which predates any of the activities in this case and all of the names that are associated with it of Jamell Demons.
But you're telling me the phone was turned over to the state attorney's office or the police on or about the date when Mr. Demons was arrested?
No, Mr. Demons turned himself in on February 13th of 2019. About 2 weeks later, his manager came to the state attorney's office to give a sworn statement and brought the phone with him.
I am annoyed.
The
That's
passcode.
Mr. Francois.
I'm not annoyed by every comment. I'm annoyed by the
The
phone
passcode
not
to
being
access that
continuing
phone
being
was given by this defendant in a jail
a
call
time waster.
that I have, like I mentioned previously, to his mother, where he is telling her how to and what code is associated with the phone. That is how the state attorney's office, with the help of law enforcement, was able to get the full extraction that we have, because this defendant, on a recorded jail call, gave the passcode to his mother.
A couple of things, Your Honor, in retort. One is if if YNW Melly is like any other artist, the person who does their bookings is their manager, the person who had phone in hand. So if it's coming back to YNW Melly booking, that would suggest that it's the manager who has possession of that phone.
Yep, that's
The
not
other
annoyed.
thing that suggests he had possession of the phone is he had possession of the phone and he turned it over. Now, the fact that Mr. Demons knows the passcode is, again, not proof dispositive. That phone was being used by others while he was incarcerated. So other people clearly knew the password to the phone or they could not have used it. And third, I'm not sure that Mr. Francois coming in here and saying it's Mr. Demons' phone would be sufficient. I don't know that that would not be some form of hearsay, but at least that might start to approach some sort of foundation. All the foundation that's required by law to be adduced and elicited and put into the record is coming from the state attorney's mouth at that desk, and it's not in evidence. So all the things that she's saying establishes it as his phone are the very things that the case law and rules require be adduced before that jury. And so the fact that she understands that is evident from the fact that she is presenting it as the foundation for why she's trying to introduce this information. But this is not the forum to do it outside the presence of the jury. Do it in front of the jury if you have the witnesses, because otherwise it's hearsay. Her saying that Joe Blow told her that somebody else owns a phone is not legal foundation sufficient to satisfy the rules of evidence.
All right, so counsel, I'd like to see what you have and show me, we'll talk about how you, what evidence you're going to have introduced to authenticate it and how to submit. All right? So we'll see everybody back at, let's see, 1:15. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let me tell you why I'm annoyed, and I don't care if y'all call me biased, because I'm allowed to have my own opinions, so I don't really care. Let me tell you why I'm annoyed. We are now on day 7, and they are still arguing about the phone. It is driving me nuts. This has been a fight since way before the trial. This should be either a yes or a no. Let the jury decide. Make a decision. Every single day, there's more arguments about the phone, and it's annoying. It's frustrating. So these are things that it's like there's no control over the decisions in the courtroom and what's happening. Make a decision. One way or the other, make a decision. I'm so sick of hearing the argument about the stupid phone. It's frustrating. So frustrating. Oh, I'm sick of hearing it. It's his phone. And if you call me biased for that, that's fine. That's not bias. That's common sense. It's his phone. Like I've said before, was he using it that night? Who knows? They haven't proven that, but it's his phone. What I'm tired of is the back and forth. They need to make a decision, rule on it, stick to it, and move on with the trial. This fighting over this every single day for like hours is so over it. Like this is not how things should be working in a courtroom. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Make a decision, rule on it. This happened. He was arrested in 2019. It is 2023, and we're still arguing over the stupid phone. And I've had 3 hours of sleep. And if I'm grouchy, I can be grouchy. Y'all got charts this morning, so I get to grouch. Let's see. I would like to see them let the jury decide. If they have the evidence, let the jury decide. If she's wrong and she has if the prosecutor's wrong and it's not his phone, then they'll be able to pick holes in it and prove it. If it is his phone, then all the stuff will be able to prove it. So if give the information and let the jury decide. The jury. It's a little ironic that. Let me not say that. I haven't had enough sleep to. No, whatever. I can say it. I think it's a little ironic that. No, let me not. Let me keep my opinions to myself for now. I just wish they would make a decision on the dang phone. Over it. Make a decision. Stop taking every single day to argue over whose phone it is. Let the jury decide. Yeah, the phone is the biggest piece of evidence, which is why they don't want it in. So, but that's the thing. If it's really the biggest piece of evidence and he's not guilty, then it should also be the biggest way to exonerate him. Like if he didn't have the phone, then let the phone evidence in. There will be something on there that shows he didn't have it. So to me, it's like if he's guilty, the phone will show it. If he's not, the phone will show it. Let the phone in. Let's see what everything is. Let's see it. The jury is the defense is fantastic. They are phenomenal attorneys, phenomenal. And we can get annoyed with what they're doing all they want to, but they are good attorneys and they are fighting for him and they are doing exactly what attorneys are supposed to do. So with them being as good as they are at their job, if they did this extraction in 2019, then they'll have everything on the phone. There will be something in there that should be able to exonerate him. Bring it in. Let everybody see. Let's make a decision based on the evidence. This is why I shouldn't stream when I've had 3 hours of sleep, because I'm so annoyed. I just wish they would make a decision and stick with it. This is just it's delaying everything so much, and I just make a decision. Okay, like I said, if I'm biased about the phone, I'm biased about the phone. I want to see all of the evidence. I want to see all of the evidence. I want to see what there is that will help us decide whether it's stuff that helps us decide that, there's a lot of doubt in this phone. There wasn't a time frame during this when he was talking to anybody, or somebody else used it during this time. That phone will either give us evidence to make a decision one way or the other, to either give us doubt or give us proof. Let it in. That's why I'm annoyed. And actually, that's not really why I'm annoyed. Why I'm annoyed is that we're still fighting over the phone, and the judge needs to make a ruling and stick with it. I just feel like all of the sidebars and all of this stuff is just, it's so much. Like it's so, I think it's honestly impairing his right to a fair trial, because I feel like the jury is going to get sick of this, because if we're sick of it, then they have to be too. They're having to sit in that chair all day. So if we're getting sick of all the sidebars and all of that, keep in mind, we're hearing their arguments. They're sitting in a room waiting, not knowing what's going on. Think about all that time. With all of this arguing that is allowed to continue going on this whole entire time, you are only making the jury more tired, more frustrated, more ready to have this over and be done. And they're not going to have the fresh outlook on things that they would if they're not sitting in the jury room for hours a day while they sit here and bicker. Make a decision. That's why I'm annoyed, and I'm allowed to be annoyed. No, it will not be done at the end of July. We'll be here until 2034. I'm here to see justice too, and I think that keeping the jury in the jury room while they continue to fight over the same issues is not part of seeing justice. Exactly. The judge needs to take control, make a decision. Keeping the jury in there while they continue to argue over the same issues is going to make it it's how can you have a fair trial when you're exhausting the jury while you continue to argue over the same things? Brenda Meyer says the defense knows Melly is guilty and the cell phone shows it. But that's, I think, is what if he's not guilty, then the phone will be, there will be so many opportunities for us to see, like, okay, well, here's this that shows that somebody else used it. Okay, so now we know that other people use it. So that creates reasonable doubt. Like, there's so many things that the jury can make their own decision on. I just wish that they would stop fighting over it. Let's see. Look, if there's one thing I'm not known for, it's shutting up when I have opinions. I'm very opinionated. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about this. I've got about 4 minutes until I have to get off here because I have a call with my doctor I have to take. So let's talk about this real quick. The juror having a hard time about the masked police officer is ironic, and I will tell you why. The process for the oh, my doctor's calling. We'll talk about this when we come back. I'm going to end the stream, and when we'll come back about 15 minutes. We'll come back at 1 o'clock. So I will see y'all then. Thanks for reporting to jury duty.